Hello my yarny friends, I'm Sara Sach. Welcome back to my crochet channel. Now today I am super excited to show you our brand new pattern release using Premier Yarn's brand new yarn called Elle by me. Now this portion of it is called Ebony. It's called Odette. It's a bulky 5 and the colorway is Ebony. This, for the trim that we used here and here, is called Aurelie, and it is the mirror ball colorway, which is also a bulky 5. It's a beautiful boucle yarn, and it's a lot easier than you think. I decided to try to make something elegant and gorgeous, but easy to stitch up, and I think you'll really enjoy making this. You can make it as a cowl, or you can just make it long as a scarf and not button the ends together. But look at those beautiful crystal buttons I found to go with it. This is the perfect cowl to wear for a Christmas party or New Year's Eve party. It'll look gorgeous with a tank top and jeans or with a fancy dress. It's just gorgeous. I love how it turned out. And this yarn is so beautiful to work with. Okay? And like I said, it's the brand new Premier Yarn by me. Not me personally, that's the name of it. Elle by me is the name of the yarn. It's not by me personally. But I just fell in love with it. They sent this to me and I thought I have got a perfect idea for this yarn. And I remember that I had these gorgeous sparkly buttons that would go perfect with it. And I'm like, that's just a perfect match. I have to do it. All right. I just love it. Now, if you work at the pattern that I have made, it measures to be about 12 inches, which is this. And the length of it is about 44 inches with the trim. So you can add or subtract as needed. This one fits me, and I wear usually a size 16. Okay. So, and like I said, it's super stretchy, super soft. You're going to really love it because the pattern itself is just a 2-row repeat and then half double crochets on the trim. And it does work up relatively quick. Now, you're not going to make it in an hour, of course, but it does work up super quick. All right. So you can find this complete pattern with lots of pictures on my blog. And as always, I'll put that blog link down in the notes underneath this video. I just love it. To make our evening ebony cowl, you're going to, of course, need some yarn. The yarn we used for the body portion of our cowl is the Odette Elle by me new release yarn. And you can see I just have a small amount left. And it is a, let me show you right here, a bulky number 5 yarn. And that's because it's very fuzzy. It's absolutely gorgeous. Can you see that sparkle in there? See how it messed with my camera a little bit? Has a lot of sparkle in it. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to do the demonstration with this gray right here. Okay, because of the sparkle and also because that's all I've got left. I used almost the entire ball, and you're getting 3.5 ounces or 328 yards. And so you need one of these. And then we did the trim in this. And this is called Aurelie. I may not be pronouncing that correctly, but this is a boucle yarn. Again, by Elle by me, another new yarn release from Premier Yarns. And you can get both of these yarns on the Premier website now. As a matter of fact, I always have my Premier Yarn link underneath this video. You can just click it and click that tab that says New Yarns, and this will pop right up. And this is a really interesting yarn. I want to show you. It has these little bumps. And it's basically 3 yarns wound together. You've got a silver strand. You've got this sort of platinum with the bumps on it. and then these strands together of black, and it's all wound together, and they have several colors of this. Premier sent me these two colors together, and I absolutely love how they worked up together with this sparkly ebony, sort of a deep smoky gray with those sparkles in there, and then this boucle style yarn here. And I only used part of it, but I do have to use another because I've only done one end, and I have to do the other end with the trim. Okay. All right. So this has 3.5 ounces, 77 yards, but I'll probably only use about half the ball of it. So if you want to make 2 of these, get 2 of this one and 1 of this one. Now, these are the buttons that I chose. Let me see. I didn't measure how big they were. I just loved them and grabbed them. All right. So they're about 1.5 inch. And it's a really interesting button. It is all clear and glass sparkly on this side. But if you want to use the other side, it's all silver. But I'm going to use the glass side sticking up. And we're going to use that to attach the 2 ends of the cowl together. Okay? So you need 3.5 ounces of a bulky number 5 for the body of your cowl. And then you need probably 2 to 2.5 ounces of a boucle. And this is also a bulky 5 because of all the bumps and stuff. It's just, these are just both absolutely gorgeous yarns. Okay. Now we're going to be stitching today with our eye hook. And I'm choosing the eye because I don't want a bunch of space in between our stitches. I want it to be a nice close stitch. And I tend to stitch a little bit loose. If you stitch tighter, you might go up to a J hook, which is a 6 millimeter. It's just kind of how you stitch. I tend to stitch a little bit looser. Okay, so I'm using the eye, the 5.5 millimeter. You need a needle for weaving in your ends and, of course, sewing on your buttons. I do recommend that you do not use this yarn to sew your buttons on or this. Grab another yarn similar to in color, like I'm going to use this gray probably, or maybe white. I'll see when I'm done what looks closer. And also, you have to make sure you can get your needle through the eye of the button. Or I should say the holes, those aren't eyes, of the button. So keep that in mind when you're picking out your buttons. And you can use 3 or you could use 4. It's just kind of up to you how many buttons you want to put on. I'm probably just going to use the 3 because I like it with the 3. 1 at the top and the bottom, 1 in the middle. And it's super elegant. So we're going to begin with the color that we're going to use for the body of our cowl. All right, so I've got this gray, and again, I'm using this for the demo to show you how I stitched up my cowl. So what we're going to do is we've done our slip knot, and now we're going to loosely chain 36 chains. We want the end to be loosely chained because we don't want the end of our cowl puckering up, because we're going to be meeting the ends together and we don't want one end to be puckered up. All right. All right. So we're going to loosely chain 36 chains. I have loosely chained 36 chains. And now what we're going to do is we're going to place a double crochet in the 4th chain from the hook. 1, 2, 3, 4. Now we will count this chain 3 as our first stitch on this row. All right, so now all we're going to do is just stitch a double crochet in each of our chains, working all the way across our row. This pattern is relatively easy and, works up relatively quick. It's not super quick, but relatively quick because it is easy. All right, so we're just going to stitch 1 double crochet in each of our chains, working all the way across our row. I have started in the 4th chain from the hook, and our chain 3 counts as our first stitch, and then I stitched 1 in each across, so we have 34 double crochets. All right, and now we're going to chain 3 and turn our work. All right, so now what we're going to do, our chain 3 counts is our first stitch on this row and on every row. We're going to go in the next stitch and stitch a double crochet. Now the next stitch, we're going to stitch a front post double crochet. That means we're going to stitch around the post of the stitch instead of up here in the top of the stitch. All right, so we're going to stitch a front post double crochet in the next 2. So 1, 2. And then the next 2 stitches will be regular double crochets. 1 and 2. And so we're going to alternate front post, double crochet every 2 stitches. So the next 2 will be a front post. 1 and 2. And then the next 2 will be our regular old double crochets. 1 and 2. Front post double crochet in the next 2. And 1 double crochet in the next 2. And we'll repeat this all the way across our row, alternating every 2 stitches. Let me turn that so you can see how that looks. All right, 2 regular, 2 front post, 2 regular, 2 front post, 2 regular, 2 front post, 2 regular, all the way across our row. I have completed row 2, and you can see that I alternated 2 regular double crochets, 2 front post double crochets all the way across, which of course gives us 34 stitches, and every row on our cowl will have those 34 stitches. All right, so we're going to chain 3, 1, 2, 3, and turn our work. And now we're going to be working on the back side of our work. So we're going to be stitching in back posts. All right, so our chain 3 counts is our first. We're going to stitch a regular double crochet in that next regular double crochet. Now what we're going to do is we're going to stitch a back post double crochet in those 2 front posts. All right, so we're going to go around to the front side, go through that post stitch, and stitch our double crochet. And then we'll do that again in the next front post double crochet. All right, that brings us to 2 regular double crochets, and we'll just stitch a regular double crochet in those 2 double crochets. All right, let me show you. This is how it looks on the back. And when we turn it over, we've stitched those 2 back posts in those 2 front posts. So we have a nice set of rows of post stitches. All right, and so we're just going to repeat this across, stitching a back post double crochet in the front post. And again, it's called a back post because we're working from the back side of our work. And when we're working them on the front side, they're called front posts. And when you learn to work back posts, it can feel a little bit clumsy at first, but just take your time and have fun. All right, so I'm just going to continue working across, stitching 2 regular double crochets, 2 back post, 2 regular, 2 back post. And again, you'll see how they look on the front. And if everything is lined up the same, back posts in your front post, your regular double crochets in your regular double crochets, you'll know you're stitching it correctly. All right, so we'll just continue to stitch this across, alternating every 2 stitches with regular double crochets and back post double crochets. I have completed row 3, and you can see where I have my front post and back posts stitched in rows with my double crochets in between. All right, so I turn my work. We're going to chain 3. And now we're going to just repeat what we did on row 2. So I'll double crochet in the next double crochet. and then I'll place a front post double crochet in the next 2 stitches. 1 and 2. And then a double crochet in the next 2 double crochets. 1 and 2. And then 1 front post in the next 2 stitches, which are the back post from the previous row. All right, and so we're just going to repeat on row 4 what we did on row 2. 2 double crochets, 2 front post double crochets, alternating across our row. And so again, I stitched 2 double crochets, 2 front post, alternating all the way across for row 4, chain 3, turn our work, and now we're basically going to repeat what we did on row 3. So we're going to double crochet in the next stitch, and we're going to stitch a back post in the front post of those 2 stitches. One double crochet in the next 2, back post double crochet in those 2 front posts of the previous row. And again, we're going to repeat this all the way across our row. And I think now you're starting to understand about how the 2-row repeat works. That's why it's so simple. All right, so here's the back. We turn it over. We have those lined up front post and back post with our double crochets in between. I have completed row 5, and again we did 2 regular and 2 back posts because we were working from the back side of our work. And when you turn it over, everything lines up nicely, and you can see those beautiful ridges in there. Isn't that gorgeous? I just love how that works up. And of course, chain 3 and turn, and that brings us to row 6. And again, we're just going to repeat what we just did down here. We're going to stitch a regular double crochet, which gives us 2, because remember, our chain 3 counts as our first double crochet on every row. Okay, and then we're going to stitch front post double crochet in the next 2 stitches and 1 double crochet in the next 2. All right, and then we'll repeat this all the way across. So I finished up row 6 with the double crochets with front posts, a chain 3, turn, and now I'm going to do row 7, which is the 2 double crochets with back post double crochets across. And that is our 2-row repeat. And I really love how it looks on the other yarn. Of course, this is my demo yarn. It's not as pretty, although it is actually really pretty on this yarn as well. All right, so I'm just going to continue across stitching 2 double crochets, 2 front posts, 2 double crochets, 2 front posts, all the way across for row 7. I have now completed up through row 7. And so now you understand how the 2-row repeats. And so what we're going to do is we're going to continue to repeat row 6 and row 7 for 67 more rows. And that'll get you up to row 74. And of course, that's going to get you a 44-inch cowl. But remember, that inches also includes the trims on the end. All right. Now, if you want to make this, say, just as a regular scarf, you could. Just make it as long as you want to, and then add the trim. All right. So, but for our pattern, you're going to need to repeat row 6 and row 7 for 67 more rows. So here is my actual cowl that I have made, and you can see how beautiful those ridges with the front post, back post look. It just gives it such a gorgeous look. And I know the sparkle in this is playing with the camera a little bit, but it really is just absolutely gorgeous. All right, now you should be up to row 74. And again, this is with the trim. It's going to give you about a 44-inch cowl. All right, now it's up to you if you want to add more rows or make it smaller. If maybe you have skinny shoulders, narrow shoulders or something, and you want to make it a little bit smaller. I suggest just taking your tape measure, measure around your shoulders, and see if it's going to fit. All right? Alrighty, so now it's time to add the trim. Now you can see I have already added it to the one end. And I'm going to add it to both ends so that they are the same. Okay? All right, I'm going to grab my other yarn and show you how to do it. Now this yarn, because of all the bumps in it, can be a little bit more, not really difficult, but challenging. But it's well worth the challenge because it's absolutely gorgeous. All right, so here's where we ended. I went ahead and cut that off. I'm going to join in my new yarn. There we go. We'll weave those in later. And we're going to go ahead and chain 2. All right, and we're going to be stitching half double crochets for the trim. All right, let me get this so it doesn't slide off my table. There we go. All right, so what we're going to do is we're going to place a half double crochet in each of our stitches across. All right, so yarn over, go in the next stitch, pull up a loop. You'll have 3 loops on your hook. Yarn over and go through all 3 of those loops. Now, I do suggest that you stitch this trim with this yarn just a little bit looser, okay? And that will help you when we do the next few rows in finding your stitches. All right, so yarn over, go in the next stitch, pull up a loop, yarn over and go through all 3 loops. And if you just loosen your tension up just a little bit, it should work just fine. Now, I wanted to do a half double crochet because I wanted that extra thickness in the stitch. All right, so let's work this all the way across, stitching 1 half double crochet in each of those stitches. I have stitched a half double crochet in each of my stitches across, chain 1 and turn. Now, the trickiest part of this yarn is knowing where to put your stitches when we turn. All right, so I want you to look at the top of your work. And you should see where it looks like a braid, but it's actually the front and back posts across the top. And you're going to put a stitch in each of those, okay? And we're going to do half double crochet. So we're going to go through those first 2 loops and stitch a half double crochet. And just take your time and look where those 2 loops are. And it can be a little tricky because we have 3 strands here together. But like I said, the trickiness of this yarn is well worth the look that you get for the elegance on this cowl. And again, keep your stitches just a little bit loose. And if you're finding yourself tightening up a little bit, go ahead and go up to that 6mm J hook. It will help you a lot. All right. And so again, I'm stitching 1 half double crochet in each of the stitches across. And again, look for those sets of loops across the top and go through those loops to make your stitch. All right, 1 half double crochet in each all the way across. And so I completed that second row of the trim, and isn't it beautiful already? I just love it. Okay, so now what you're going to do is you're going to repeat this row right here for 3 more rows. So we did 75, 76, and you do 77, 78, and 79 for 3 more rows. So I have repeated that 3 more times. So I have 5 rows of my trim. If you want a longer trim, you've got some extra yarn, you can make it even longer. It's totally up to you. But I like this size. And now we need to weave it in. So we're going to cut it off, and weaving in this yarn can be just a little bit tricky. All right. So let's go ahead and tie this off. And we have all these strands, but I'm going to try to keep them together. And it will be a little tricky. There we go. But one nice thing about this yarn is it is a little bit forgiving because of all the movement. So let's move to the back of our cowl here. And we're just going to go in. There we go. And we're going to do like we usually do. We're going to go forward and back, just being real careful because it will get caught like that. And you have to give it a good hard tug through some of that. There we go. And just be careful, but that tells you it's not going to come out, right? And if you feel more comfortable, you can take the individual strands and weave them in as well. But I don't think you're going to have any problem with those coming out with all those bumps and everything. All right, so now I need to weave this end in, and then I'm going to show you how to lay it out and add your buttons. Oh, but before we do that, you need to go to the other end of your cowl and add the trim on so it's on both edges of your cowl. All right, we want it on both edges. Just join your yarn in, 1/2 double crochet in each across, and repeat so you have 5 rows just like we do up here. Now to make the shape of our cowl so it will fit across our shoulders, you're going to lay one this way and then cross this one over, and we'll just line them up so that the 2 corners match. And you can do it off if you want to so that that can be seen, but I don't. I just lay them right up against each other just like this. Okay, so I just added some of this gray yarn that I did the demo with because I thought it would blend in nicely. And so the first button we want to add is the one that goes down here, and that is a very important one because that's going to keep this together. All right, so I'm going to come up from the bottom, and I'm going to leave a little bit of a tail there, and I'm going to make that loop that goes all the way through and back up, because this is very important that our our cowl stays put. All right, so I did a couple of loops. Now we're going to add our beautiful button. And I absolutely love these big crystal buttons. And you want to make sure you get this attached securely because this is probably going to be pulled on. They're not going to be buttoned and unbuttoned because we're sewing through. They can just slip it over their head. But we want that button to stay secure because it's probably going to get pulled on a little bit. Okay? And so I go through there a couple of times. And then we'll just tie the knot on the bottom. I'm going to go ahead and cut that. There we go. So I can do that little loop that I like to do, that type of button. Get as close as you can and snip. All right, and so I think that that yarn worked out good with that color. It blends nicely. All right, so then the next button I'm going to put on is the top one. So I'm going to pull this a little bit, have everything lay nice and flat. Be careful not to go through the backing of it, just through those two, and we'll do the same thing. We'll go down through Whoops, I should have come up from the bottom. There we go. We want to have that tail to tie with. And then we're just going to make those 2 loops. It's going to keep our cowl together. Then we'll grab our button. Let's see, I stitched it up and down. So let's make sure we do it the same. And then we'll just make a couple more passes through that button. A little snag in my yarn there. I'll make sure I'm not grabbing my extra yarn. And then we'll cut that so I can make that loop. Alrighty, and clip. So now I have 2 buttons on. And if you want to add like 2 more, you can. I'm just going to add 1 more so that there's 3 on there. So I like the 3. And then we'll just sort of stretch it a little bit, make sure everything's laying pretty, and come up from the bottom, make that loop. Because again, these 3 buttons is what is going to hold your cowl on. There we go. And I love these buttons. They're so pretty. And I'm pretty sure I bought them from Hobby Lobby. But I can't remember because I have had them for a little while. I've been saving them for a special project. And when this yarn came in, I'm like, that is the special project I've been saving those for. Alrighty, got it through. Alright, so I'm going to tie that securely. All right, you want to try to hide those knots. Now, you know, here, you're not really going to see it because of how busy this is, but you are going to see it here and here. But remember, that's inside against your skin, okay? All right, so here is our evening ebony cowl. Isn't it gorgeous? And I know you think, well, why did we put this here? But that's just so that if it gets blown up or pushed up or whatever, you have that on there. Or if you just want to wear it as a regular scarf, you can make it longer and put those trims on there. Isn't this beautiful? I have the perfect dress to wear with it.